Thank you, Abhi. Thank you. So it's just a lack of a lectern, I should say. But yeah, hello and a very good evening to each one of you. A grand welcome, rather. Today we're launching season 3 of TechTuesdaysUK. It took 28 episodes and 2 years to reach where we are, which is the launch of season 3. Before I start, some very essential notes on housekeeping. The gents are on the first floor, ladies and right outside. In case of any emergency, please walk out of the gate, take the stairs, go out. Don't take a mobile phone, don't need to tweet. That's the last thing you do in life. And mobile phones, please, at all times, should be kept on silent mode. At the very beginning, let me take the opportunity of thanking our hosting partner, which is SBI UK. Maybe a grand round of applause for them. Not seldom you find Indian public sector bank in sort of showing so much support and affection for a tech event of this scale. So thank you, SBI UK. For some of you who are attending TechTuesdaysUK for the very first time today, this knowledge platform stems from the very idea of building a community that ideates, nurtures, and then fosters a free-flow discussion of disruptive technologies, which have the potential to impact a billion lives. For some of you who have attended TechTuesdaysUK and who are attending this for the first time, you know that this particular format of TechTuesdaysUK is a monthly event, which takes place on the first Tuesday of every month, where we spend a little more than 90 minutes having conversations around technology. I said a little more than 90 minutes because there's no TFL tracks today. So you can take your time, discuss more, and take your easy way out. The most unique thing about TechTuesdaysUK, which you realize, that there's a free-flow conversations where we don't have any moderation, a given set of questions, or any speaker, what you normally see. We believe in the power of good words, and therefore I earnestly request each one of you present out here to talk about us on the social media, tagging us on Tech Tuesdays. We're pretty big on LinkedIn. We're not that great on X, so LinkedIn is preferred. Please talk about us. As a part of our tradition, after the session ends, we'll invite some of you for your video bites. Please note that all the photographs, all the video bites that we'll take out here are going to be used across all our digital touchpoints. With regards to today's episode, as you know, every episode of Tech Tuesday is based on a particular topic or a theme. Today's episode is technology and motion picture. To discuss, ideate, and more of this, we have with us an amazing panel comprising of 4 of my dear friends. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our panel members. The first one, who's logging all the way from Mumbai, it's probably midnight out there, is Bodhan Mukherjee's buddy. Bodhan is the founder director at Little Lamb Films and a Cannes Lion winner, as well as an Indian National Award winner. We have Naman Ramchandran. Naman is the international correspondent at Variety magazine. He's an author as well as a screenwriter. We have Pranav Kabadia. Pranav is the founder and director at Moviegoers Entertainment UK. And last I know of, I could be right or wrong, maybe correct me. He's the 3rd top producer in this country. Operation House.
Distributor.
Well, that's it. It's all. And alphabetically, Yasser is one. My dear friend, Yasser is an acclaimed author in Indian and a journalist writing for BBC. As you know the format, they're going to do the show. I'm completely out of it. It's all in your hands. Good luck.
So, Raman, I think we're ready to start.
I think we'll start.
Yes.
Okay, hi. Good evening, everyone. I think it's beyond evening here, and I rarely keep awake at this time of the night, and Shubha has managed to do that. So I think when we met yesterday, the 5 of us, I think it was entrusted to me to start the proceedings. So I would do that. I live in Bombay. I still call it Bombay, by the way. I live in Bombay, and I make films, I produce, I write. I have a production house called Little Lamb Films, and ever since Subhash roped me in in this panel, I've been actually thinking that what role has tech played in my life, and I finally have an answer, and I think it's nice to share with all of you, and then we will have more and more discussions. There will be, so I would possibly disappoint you by saying that I will not speak on AI. There will definitely be others who will be speaking on AI, but I would generally talk about how tech has impacted my life. So if I look at my 29 years of work life, and I would divide it into two parts. One is pre-COVID, one is post-COVID. I think COVID has been a watershed event in our lives, definitely in my life. Our embracing tech happened much more once COVID hit us. So we are primarily art filmmakers, and we are also self-funded filmmakers. We produce feature films, and we support debutant directors in this country, in India. So when it comes to production, post-production, the regular standard tech is what we generally have always followed. But when COVID hit us, you suddenly realize that we weren't really prepared for it, but we had to survive. So we became India's first production house to do a film where no one stepped out of their house. This was on the 22nd of March 2020, I think 2 days before the lockdown actually started. But we had got a wind of what will happen, and so we started making. So we were approached by Unilever and Ogilvy to make a film for, all of you would remember the Thali Bajao episode in our lives, where everyone beat the shit out of thalis. So we were told to make a film for Unilever, and we asked Unilever employees to send user-generated footage. Very interestingly, before lockdown hit us, a week before that, we had drawn up lists, not a list, but multiple lists of people who would stay at home and would be able to work with us. So we had a list of editors who had offline setups at home, online artists who had online setups at home. We had list of sound engineers who would have sound set up at home, grading artists. It became more and more complex as we progressed. But over the next 6 months, we did 44 films, and no one stepped out of our houses. So sitting at home, this is exactly where I used to sit. And I used to direct films, direct actors, and that's where tech came in. Initially it was primarily through WhatsApp, and we were briefing people would send us their video clips and stuff, and finally, where the game changer happened when Bangalore in June 2020 was the first city to open up for shoots. Bombay it wasn't possible to go out and shoot, and so was in most of the cities in India. Bangalore was the first city to open up. We started shooting in Bangalore. Now, how did we shoot? This is where Zoom call shoot started. For the first time in life, I would actually do remote shoots, and without tech support, that would have never happened. The camera companies started working overtime. So by then Zoom call had already come into our lives. But the fact that the camera would have a Zoom adapter, and the signal would go into a laptop, and it would be screened directly into my laptop, and I would pin that window, and I would be able to see the frame which the camera was seeing. But it was 320p. I think much later it gradually became better. But those days 320p is like taking us back to our video assist days, where when you look at a monitor, you would only see composition and movement. Do not rely on color and contrast and brightness and stuff. So I started directing through Zoom calls. How would I direct? So the actors would come in front of the Zoom call and I would get introduced. And so there was a team. And thankfully, some of my ex-lambs were in Bangalore, and it was also giving them opportunity to earn. It was risky, but they started stepping out. They started being on floor. Those days, 20 people was the max unit size that was allowed. So we used to calculate that if it was going to 21, the authorities would not allow us to shoot. So there would be a one-point contact who would sit in front of that monitor in Bangalore, and I would be directing from Bombay, from where I'm sitting right now, through exactly the same interface through which I'm reaching out to you now. And I would direct actors, I would see performances, and very interestingly, agencies would join in, clients would join in. And just the way we used to shoot, in a physical space, we started shooting. Now, there are flip sides to it. If I get into the flip side, but it's a long discussion. But the fact remains that still is existing in our lives. Zoom call shoots still exist. I was shooting a film for Dell where the creative director of New York joined on a Zoom call shoot. Now, otherwise, what would have happened? He or she would have flown down, would have been with us. So Zoom call shoots through the tech of making the world a smaller village is part of our lives now. We multitask. We do not go for PPMs, the pre-production meetings with clients across the country anymore. I think everyone has become a little lazy. And when you get to meet online, why do you need to spend so much of money, travel to Delhi, go to Gurgaon, have meetings with clients? Suddenly, everything has become laptop-centric. Thankfully, we shoot in physical space now, but there are still people who would join on a Zoom call shoot. This would have never happened if COVID had not hit us. Hence, as a filmmaker, I always feel that COVID has shown us two sides of the coin. One is what the human potential is to exploit a situation and adapt. I think adaptability of the human race to a problem in front of you through technology is something which we learned. The other side of it is that, again, there is always a flip side. Okay, let me be very honest. I do not like Zoom shoots. I absolutely hate them from the bottom of my heart. It's impersonal. It doesn't allow me to have one-on-one conversations. It doesn't allow me to be in front of an actor and brief and see the spark in his or her eyes. I used to miss those. So I was very happy going back to where we came from originally. But at the same time, we can now take up more projects. We can multitask, we can stretch our work hours. All of those things have happened, and that has only happened because of technology supporting us through this pandemic. And that's where we are today. And this is a very reason why something like this can happen where all of you are in London. Well, and I'm a sleepy director from Bombay has joined you guys. So all of this has happened because of technology, and I'm grateful. Not so always, but yeah, that's where these are my initial thoughts. I'll come back again. Over to Naman and everyone out there.
So to carry on from what Badran said just now, specifically what he said, what he talked about ad films which are a few minutes duration. Now most recently there's been an entire feature film done in the way that Badran described. So I'm sure all of you have heard of Nawazuddin Siddiqui. So one of his new films, he's in Germany, he's in Frankfurt, and he's getting, he plays a recently retired banker, and he's taking acting lessons from an acting coach, a woman who's based in Bombay. And yeah, I still can't say Mumbai. So the whole thing unfolds in real time. The director, Aditya Kriplan, at each other, and it's a very interesting experiment.
Was this second dangerous wave of COVID when even the news personnel were asked to stay wherever they are, or people who were doing coverage of COVID in the respective cities, hotels and guest houses, and I was confined to a room. And that was the first time we realized that we were using a popular news software in our newsroom, which is, I think, common across Europe also. I don't know if it is even now. It's called Octopus Newsroom System. And TV newsrooms are really different. That shows and movies and ad films, they are actually recorded, and there's no problem in terms of if it is not shot well, or if there's some technical problem, you can shoot it again. Here we are talking about live bulletins, like half-hour long live bulletin, and it's a cycle 24/7, and they're not recorded. I can tell you that much. 80% of news bulletins are live. There's not even a script on your teleprompter. So what to do? We are confined in rooms, different rooms in different cities, and that's where we realized this particular software. And people had phone, and people had laptops, and you have to do live clips with green backgrounds, small green backgrounds bought from Amazon or the shops. And we actually ran for an entire month a 24/7 news channel from our rooms in different cities. So if this first news item is from Bombay, someone from Bombay will do the clips on the same software, Octopus Newsroom System, and someone from Raipur and Kolkata. And that's how there was not even a moment of blackout, and it was an eye-opener to do a live channel, news channel from your homes or rooms, and that was how I realized the importance of tech. Of course, we have our mobile phones and everything, good cameras, but that was slightly an extension from recording movies. You said these are exactly live movie scenario what you were talking about, and he said the Zoom thing. But this in my life was a live scenario. How tech became important, and of course the catalyst was COVID.
So, like everybody else, so basically first I'm from a television and then a film background, and I'm not on the creative side of things, I'm more in the distribution side of things. I've produced 2 films, but that's very nascent for me, I'm still learning, but distribution I've done for a fair bit of time. And if I were to look back I think technology was always part of our lives, but that was like slow progress. If you look at what we've achieved in the last 5 years compared to those 15 years, so it didn't really disrupt the business model. So we were all comfortable. We would adapt to technology, but we were not worried about our jobs. Then, of course, I moved to a film studio where I was doing hardcore distribution. When I joined them in 2006, we were still operating on film reels, and the cost of a print, as we would call it, of one film would be 50,000 rupees. So we were very prudent about how many prints we would release the film with, because you got to at least earn a lakh of rupees for it to break even. And with hard drives, that was again technology changing our business. While it was easy to transport, because prints would be whatever kgs, this would be a physical drive, but then you would suddenly have a pile. The exhibitor would tell I've got 200 drives. If he's got 10 films, everybody listening and everybody in the room will agree that our consumption completely changed with COVID. You could not go out of the house, so obviously, and you didn't have an occupation as such, so we just turned to our televisions. We discovered a lot of new content, and we were just absorbed in that world. The convenience and the ease with which you could find content, not only your language, it could be other language. And at that time, particularly, I was in between. I was setting up my business, and so personally for me, it was a very down time, because I was literally reflecting on, if I am smart, I left my job at a completely wrong time, and having left, what am I going to do? If this is the only thing, I can drink at home, but you will go to your coffee shop. Therefore, watching a film in cinemas will remain, it will come back. And I'm very happy to share today, box office today is back, say 80-85% to the level pre-COVID, and this is globally. Mind you, in COVID, we were the first to close, as in when I say we, it was cinemas, first to close and last to start. So it was even more painful. You could see restaurants open, but there were no films. And so that's one bit of technology that has, we are learning to coexist. In fact, we are today very happy that OTT has come about, and the ecosystem allows for both OTT and cinemas to coexist.
Digital has also impacted the discipline of filmmaking, and that is something which has been a point of bother for a lot of us. Now, what do I mean by that? In the sense that the first 200 ad films that I've shot was on raw stock. Now, raw stock obviously came at around 12 and a half, 13,000 bucks, 15,000 bucks for a 4.5 minute can. Now, which obviously, as Pranam says, digital. From analog, we moved to digital. The art of saying cut went out of the system. So what happened was, and I see this with a lot of my young assistants who have become directors, is that since everything is now recorded on hard disk, and hard disk is there, people have stopped saying cuts. People would say action and the camera would roll. Is that editors today complain that earlier, for an ad film of say 30 seconds, we used to have rushes which was around 30, 35, 40 minutes max. Now, there are 8 hours of rushes, 10 hours of rushes, 20 hours of rushes for a 30-second film. How does one cope with it? How would the editor watch everything? One terrible impact of this is that on shoot, we often have an assistant director sitting next to me and noting down the takes which I have liked, note down, and come back saying that you have liked take X, but I personally feel take Y is much better. So it has impacted decision making. It has, and through decision making, it has also impacted films qualitatively. So I think that's a very strange impact of technology, and I have been on the other side of it, and I have had huge fights with my assistants, and they say that, well, we are like this. We are a generation who do not say cuts.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but
Yes, I can hear you.
fascinating observation. It almost reminded me of the generational difference we grew up with and what our children grew up with in terms of the 36 exposures when we went on holiday versus, the 10,000 photographs that they come back with, from a vacation, right? We would be able to capture a 7-day holiday in 36 frames, but, they come back with 10,000, right? And completely agree with exactly what you're talking about. It's a generational shift.
Probably the first film that really broke out, it was 15 screens at that time, all Cineworld, and it did £1 million.
Yeah.
It was unheard of. Cineworld Feltham, we all call it the mecca of collections, because in the good old days of prints, one print, I remember, Sangram will also remember, Mujhse Shaadi Karogi. That was my first film as a distributor. We did £95,000 from one print in Feltham. I don't think I've seen that sort of print, as we call the screen average. So a 50,000 rupee print giving a 95 lakhs or thereabouts return. Even in India, a print would not give this sort of return. That's why even in Bollywood, Feltham was the mecca. So obviously Cineworld was our first choice. There were many films which, even if Cineworld entertained us and not the rest, we would be happy. Until recently, they poached this, View poached this guy from Cineworld, and suddenly I'm seeing the market share of View going up. And by the way, before this, when Tamil Telugu started breaking into mainstream Bollywood, View was the first one to say no to them. And these distributors would come to us to say, how do you program with View? Your Hindi, they are not, even a Rajnikant movie they are not playing. And they just were not bothered to get into the language. Obviously, they were not companies who were coming to them, so they were not sure, do the rights belong to him or him, so they said, just let's stay away, and they thought, it'd be 8,000-10,000 pounds, whatever. Of course, by the time they realized they had missed the boat, because Cineworld again captured that market. But now with this AI, evidently, I never have to fight with View to give me screens. In fact, a recent film, I think it was Singham again, we requested, for example, 20 screens. They came back to us saying, I'll give you 40. And we're like, hello, it's never happened. And they said, no, we've got data to show that there is an audience here, and you just supply the DCP, and rightly so, they gave us excellent collections. Now they are almost at 50% market share. Cineworld is going down. Odeon is, I can do a whole seminar on Odeon. So that's the bit about AI coming into distribution. But I just wanted to pick up on something that Buddy was talking about, misusing of technology. So, when I said that print stopped and then we were doing hard drives, there was obviously the cinemas had to get upgraded with digital hardware. So they had these old projectors and they needed to get digital systems, and the cost of each one was say $200,000. Now there was this industry we were locking horns. Who will pay for that? It's not, the distributor will say, I was paying for the prints. I'm not going to suddenly start giving you your $200,000 to upgrade, because you're going to eventually keep it. So anyway, there was something called virtual print fee. That was again a Hollywood concept where they came up with, let's say, a 7 or 8 year sunset sort of a leasing model. So if it cost $200,000, they would recover the money from us. So they said, okay, you're spending 50,000 rupees anyway for a print, right? Which is about $500, $600. You carry on paying 600 instead of ordering a print, you keep giving us that 600 and we will be, upgrading to digital systems. So we started doing that. So for a long time, say 4-5 years, while these equipments were being written off, there was no real saving for us because the prints had stopped. But we were still very prudent about how many screens to release because we were paying $600 a screen. Say sometime in 2018 or around then, the sunset clause came and that $600 disappeared. And guess what? Everybody, every distributor, and you know how egos come into play with the filmmaker. He said, "यार, वो picture का कितना screen लगा है?" बोला, "Sir, 500." Okay, यार, I want to do 600 screens. Well, it's not costing him anything, right? So distributors would go out there and say, "Okay, 600 screens." Someone would say 700 screens. Now, the exhibitor, obviously, you are using an inventory of this. You are taking a screen, and then you have 2 people sitting in that show. So they quickly came up with a concept called per screen average. So they are not guaranteeing you a revenue share before the film releases. They are telling you, okay, you want 600 screens? I believe that you know your content. I'll give you 600. At the end of the film run, if 200 out of these 600 screens have a very poor turnout, I'm going to pay you less. So I can't give you the film's name, but there is a film that was released with 930 screens in the US, a Bollywood film. And we released a film called Rocky Aur Rani Ki Prem Kahani with 267 screens. And obviously, I mean, our ideal was about 500 screens for Rocky, but it was week 2 of Oppenheimer and Barbie, and those 2 films had exploded in week 2. They were huge in week 1, but one thought that they would start tapering, but they were huge in week 2. So, and the exhibitors came to us to say, you deserve these many screens, but I can't throw out a film that is performing. And it was also week 3 of Mission Impossible. So they said, I'll give you, and we were embarrassed, we were worried, how do we go to, Karan Johar and say, your directorial film after 7 years, you're directing a film. We are a very new company, we are a baby. So, and he entrusted us. So, we were like, what is he going to say? But we ensured that 80% of those 267 screens were the, like full-on Felthams. Okay, they were the Bollywood go-to cinemas. And we had a lot of support from the exhibitor as well to say, look, I'm keeping an eye. If your occupancy is 80%, 90%, your shows are selling out, I promise you I'll give you more screens. Ultimately, Rocky Aur Rani Ki Prem Kahani has grossed $3 million more than that film that had 950 screens. So you don't need so many screens. That's the point. You don't need, just because technology is available and it's costing you nothing, just a hard drive of $50 doesn't mean that you can just dish out and release that many screens.
I kind of have an observation and a question. So when a veteran filmmaker, writer like Paul Schrader says this on a Facebook post that ChatGPT is officially smarter than me when cooking up ideas for films, and Yuval Noah Harari said that human imagination is limited by an individual's personal experiences, but AI has access to the sum total of human experience, and hence it might just supersede human imagination as we know it. So my question is, where is filmmaking going? I mean, one perspective is from filmmakers, and the other perspective is the audience. I just today got to know of a term called second screen, where when you are watching something on Netflix, you are constantly fiddling around with the phone, and wonder of wonders, the phone is considered the primary screen, and Netflix or what you're watching is considered the second screen, and it's a trend big enough for Netflix to instruct producers and content creators to increasingly make films and shows which you don't have to watch with a lot of attention. I mean, you can fiddle around with anything and the dialogue
and the voiceover, etc., will be telling the story. You don't have to constantly look at the screen, right? And then there's the attention spans. My daughter seems to be more organically attached to those 15-second storytelling where you scroll instead of sitting through an entire story of 2.5 hours. I'm trying to get used to that. But I'm just saying, all of this, where is it going? Where do you see this going in the next, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years? In 100 years, is filmmaking done? I mean, where is the future?
I was just thank you for thank you. That's been very enlightening, actually. You know, it feels like being on the XIC campus after many years. So, Subhash, thank you. I have one observation and two questions, and one question I think Amrish said already. The one observation is whenever that I live in two worlds, both tech and creative, because I'm a trained actor, history filmmaking, and my prime profession is technology. Whenever there are discussions about filmmaking or cinema and technology, it's kind of amusing for me because I firmly believe that I think it's the only art which simply cannot exist without technology. So some discussions become mute because camera is a technology. Editing, whether it was analog and then with telecine and everything coming habits, without technology it just cannot exist. So there is something that is integral, and I think all of you stalwarts have been must be steadily adapting to it over years. You know, you may not give that credit. It's just that what COVID did was it brought the disruption to forefront. That the way we make films change. The films essentially had the technology, but quickly coming to where I'm more curious and observing something on Amrish said is the confluence of many things that happened post COVID. That's where the consumption pattern changed. Where my big question is long form versus short form and the shortest form. Because that's first time our entertainment and engagement methods are changing. And almost AI or any new technology platform, it's almost encouraging that short form entertainment. Number one. And as an audience, avid cinephile, cinelover, I'm worried that what the hell is happening after 30 seconds, the technology in my hand or maybe in screen is encouraging me to disrupt my attention. So that's number one. Number two, something on what Pujaran said earlier, about that not actors, directors not making cut, not calling out cut. Now I'm a trained actor and we were always taught in institute that, when you wait for the cue and even when the director says cut, you carry the expression for a few more seconds so editor will get a little bit to splice, That was so hardwired. So I'm also concerned about, and I'm talking all of you probably behind the camera, we don't know much, but I'm talking from in front of the camera, the impact on the craft. Because it's art, craft, and then business. So first on long form and short form, and second on the impact on craft. There are hidden questions here, but I'm talking as if I'm sitting in a restaurant having coffee at some samovar or something like that back in Bombay, and I had to say Bombay. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'll before anyone jumps in, I'll try to address a couple of things.
Yeah.
One is that the more I am in these kind of discussions, I feel I wish I was born 40 years earlier. I would have been dead by now. But that is not the case. So I will have to live and see where we are going. So Amrish, your question of where is it going? Honestly, I don't know. I'm a traveler. I will have to travel this path with this journey of cinema and see where I reach. I might not like where I reach, but as I travel, I need to adapt. I think technology does teach us the basic desire and ability to adapt, and we have been adapting, and that's what COVID taught us. I'll repeat myself: is that human ability to adapt to a situation. So I would leave that to Naman, Yasir, and Pranab to also come in and answer your question, Amrish. But as far as I'm concerned, honestly, being an act filmmaker who, when we used to make 30 seconders, 45 seconders. Now when Google comes back to us and tells us that the most important thing in your film is 6 seconds. The first 6 seconds of your commercial is where you need to have the brand name. Now these have started dictating, and just the way you said that your daughter, the attention span, she loves to watch 15 seconders. Now that is impacting the way we makers are making films.
Correct.
So we are constantly being told by Google that do not make anything more than 20 seconds. And then Google themselves go out and make a Google reunion film for 5.5 minutes. That's double standards. Correct. So now, and in that 20 seconds, the first 6 seconds is where the brand needs to come in. So when we are designing films these days, these are things which we never bother about. We just make films. Now everything is so tailor-made because the plethora of choices, the way we human beings watch films and stuff, I think these are changing and we constantly need to adapt. So I can say that, well, I'll not make a film where a brand would come in the first 6 seconds. So people will say, you go and take a jump. Someone else will do. So I will constantly have to adapt myself. Coming back to Ani's question of does it impact actors? Of course it does. And I can feel it.
Yes.
There's a serious amount of confusion on sets. I can see because actors do not know when to attention and standard is. So when the actor is in attention and when the actor is at standard is, they are very confused because the camera is rolling. Now why is the camera rolling? So these are things which are impacting the craft of every single person. Now in the middle of a shot, gone are those days where you would say that, okay, at this point in time, on that dialogue, I will say track, and the camera would start to track. Now, this has nothing to do with digitalization and technology, but I have seen younger directors who are constantly moving the camera and coming back, moving the camera and coming back. So the actors also don't know that is my nostrils in frame or my face. So these are things which will keep bothering, which will keep evolving, and hopefully we'll navigate through it. Honestly, if you ask me, I don't know.
Can I? Sorry, carrying on your laughter, can I add something? Because I've had discussions with some notable actors in India. I won't take names, good friends, and and sometimes I would critique that. Why the hell did you act like that? And what kind of frame was that? And he said the same thing. That I was totally confused. I think whatever. And I wanted to give another take, but they said, you got few shots, you actor, don't worry, we will enhance it and everything. And my challenge was that, listen, I mean, you're a filmmaker, you're a director, writer, you're an actor also. Why are you somebody who's leading into this? Why are you trying to meet the lowest common denominator?
Everything is being impacted by regarding the direction and the control part of the movie. Then, do we really require a censorship? The reason behind is that when we earlier shot some sequences or shots relating to animals, we used to give a request to the censor saying that we did not harm any of the animals and it was part of the movie entertaining the people. But after introduction of animation in the movies, we are simply putting a disclaimer to the censorship saying that yes, it's an animated part of the movie and the movie is getting cleared by the censor mode. So going forward, if AI gets inducted in every part of the movie sequence, do really we need a censorship board, or do we really require the movie to be censored?
Well, I can speak to the second part of your question, where there's an interesting debate going on in television circles, specifically about natural history programming. Right. So, what is natural history programming? Where incredibly patient cinematographers and directors. They go and sit for hours, days, months to cast that one sighting of a polar bear or whatever in their natural habitat. So the new argument after the advent of AI is, why do you want to do that? You can show photorealistic polar bears in what looks exactly like their natural habitat, and you are actually saving the planet by not going and disturbing them and burning lots of carbon or whatever, taking a massive crew and massive cameras or whatever. So, from an ethical point of view, the AI people argue that they are correct. So, in such a scenario, yeah, you won't need any censorship, if you want to put it that way. The first part of your question, who gets recognized as the creator? Is there any difference between an editor or a director? That would ultimately depend on the product. At the end of the day, if Mani would make what Badhan produced, it is still very much the product of the human imagination, based on real life experiences and shot in some real places. So we go back to the old concept of auteur theory. Just now Ghatak and Ray were mentioned, and also to come back to the lowest common denominator, so to speak. Some of the films catering to the lowest common denominator are also some of the most finely crafted ones.
Yeah.
So we should not discount that.
Yeah. Also, like censorship, you talked about censorship, and we know this very popular software called deepfake. It's criticized and misused across. I know about Indian election system. I've covered those elections, those videos, Rahul Gandhi's videos, these deepfake videos are used. But the same technology they have used in many Hollywood films. They have used most popularly in The Irishman, with they use the same software for de-aging, which is an expensive technology if you use the usual CGI. They used deepfake in that film, and it was brilliant that way. So it's about your use. The entire censorship issue is how you use the technology. It's not the technology's problem.
Interesting, funny anecdote to share here. One of my films which I directed called The Violin Player, which was on Netflix some time back. The Violin Player had a cockroach, and I'll tell you why this is very interesting. Is that the gentleman who asked the question of censorship? Every single time we go to censor our films, if there's an animal in the film, then we have to take a certificate from the Animal Welfare Board. Now, that's another story that I have seen Animal Welfare Board people on my shoot having tandoori kebab and stuff, and Rogan Josh and stuff. But that's a different thing. But when there's a dog or a cow, and there is a possibility of getting a certificate from the vet, then it becomes easier. Now we had a cockroach. Now the cockroach, I wanted it in a particular way, so we generated it on CG. So on computer graphics, we had a cockroach. So when we went to the Animal Welfare Board, they said that you have an insect in your food. Give us a vet certificate. So we said that, well, it's a cockroach. And then they said, well, but we still can't give you. And then we said that, hello, it is a CGI generated one. So post that, we actually had to show them wireframe animation of how we had generated it for them to believe it's a CGI generated cockroach. And then they gave us the censor certificate. The reason why I bring this up here is that the gentleman who asked the question, no matter what we do, and we use AI to create animals and CGI to create animals, even if we use AI to have animals and insects and birds and bees and stuff, the Censor Board of India will ask for a vet certificate. Now, how does one provide that? Is something we need another AI for, another problem. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. So, interesting anecdote, we can move.
So I have a slightly or completely different view, different perspective to add to censorship. Because first of all, on the internet there is no censorship. Okay, it is impossible to censor things. People are uploading millions of videos every day on YouTube. How would you censor it? But obviously in films there is censorship. And India is just one country. We are releasing the film in 60, 70 countries. There are 60, 70 censor boards. And what could be okay for India is not okay outside India. And the dynamic is completely different. So from a distribution, operations point of view, it is a nightmare to get the film censored. I can give you several examples. One that comes to my mind is Yodha. Yodha was a film that we released last year. It was a hijack film, and we had taken a lot of precaution in not naming Pakistan as the enemy, because we know that in Gulf or in UK, everybody lives harmoniously, all the communities. So Gulf especially is very clear. In fact, sometimes the censor board himself is Pakistani. So they say, we don't want to, any content that can create a rift. So we respected that, and when we submitted the film, the censor board officer said, it looks okay to me, but I'm not going to give you the certificate yet. I want to see what Qatar, Bahrain, the other countries are doing. Now, he's a government employee. He's not getting any incentive to pass the film. In fact, he may get an incentive to not pass it. The authorities will say, good, you're doing a good job. You blocked that film. Yeah, even I think it had a little bit of anti-Pakistan in it. Luckily, the other boards also came on board, and we got the certificate. But recently, the last film I released was Skyforce. Skyforce, I don't know how many people have seen it. It's clearly two films. Before the interval, it is about an Indian army person, going into Pakistan and destroying a base and coming back. And obviously, there are jingoistic dialogues. When the Pakistani commander asks, "Kaun aap kaun se?" He says, "Tumhara baap Hindustan." So we knew this is going to be a problem. But the second half of the film, our army actually goes there and, with the help of a Pakistani army, because between the two armies of two warring countries also there is a decorum. They will follow that protocol. They actually help each other. So it's a film of, in a way, of unity. So the censor board officer again said, I know your film is not what your promos are, but you've destroyed my chances of giving you because you have played to the gallery and you have gone ahead and done this. So there can be serious commercial implications with censor boards, and I've heard quite a few filmmakers and buddies here, and he'll agree. Film has the power to move things which so many things cannot. Very subtly, a filmmaker can sort of seed a thought in your head. So, like Imtiaz Ali will never show somebody smoking a cigarette. None of his characters will smoke a cigarette, because he firmly believes that this medium has the power, and I don't think it's a very good habit. So if a censor board is telling you smoking kills, it's irritating as an audience to see, or that that Rakesh ad, 30-second ad, where they show the. But look at the demographic of India. Look at how impressionable minds can actually think it's heroic, to walk into a room with a cigarette. I should do it, and what impact it can have. So I have huge respect, much as creative people will not, agree that some sort of censorship should be. Yes, there shouldn't be the double standard, like, okay, I like this filmmaker, so I'll pass whatever he says and not do. If it's fairly done, there should be some form of. I know I'm sticking my neck out, and a lot of people don't like what I'm saying, but I think it has a lot of impact on people.
Great. I think we've got someone on Zoom waiting. Swapna, you there? Yeah, kindly go ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to give a little, maybe slightly more positive point of view to what's happening. Hi Naman, hi Pranav. It's been a while. So for the others, I'm a film producer, but I started off as a production manager from the time that they were talking about when film can was the entire be all and all of my life. Literally would sleep in the room with the cans. Because there's nothing that matters till that cans are safely taken back to Bombay and we shoot around the globe. From there, I of course saw the change with digital film coming in. Similar discussions then, DOPs refusing to work on digital film, saying it kills the whole. I still have DOPs who say that the true beauty is in film and not in digital, and So they've all been proven right, wrong. It's a journey. We're all constantly moving forward. My brother is an Academy Award-winning VFX specialist, so we started collaborating and working together. So I slowly moved away from films, though I still have one foot there all the time, to gaming. Now the interesting thing about gaming is gaming engines, which is the Unreal Engine, which is what is now powering the biggest productions in the world through virtual productions. So Mandalorian was the first film that kind of really, where Jean Favreau really experimented with it and took it to another level, and that's become now the standard, gold standard for filmmaking, using Unreal Engine to use virtual production to get results that we could have not imagined, like a sunset that can last for 20 days, which gives the director, it actually brings the power back to the director and the creative pool to make sure that the end product looks better than it could have ever been done before. Again, so it's like feeding constantly to each other, films and games and the tech world. And we've just embraced it completely. And I think Naman said, but something very scary about the new, it's very immediate that actors are going to be replaced by AI representation. That's quite scary because we're still talking virtual production. Like I'm a consultant on a Middle East country project where we're setting up a huge virtual production hybrid studio. So I'm thinking this is going to be a little bad as the studio is done. That's going to be completely over and done with, and we've got to come up with something, really think on our feet and come up with solutions. So I hope Naman's wrong and there's a little more time than what we think is going to happen. But with games, what's happened is also that when you start conceptualizing characters and storylines, you have a basic idea, which is the human mind. Then we're using AI and tech a lot to come up with variations. So it makes our job much easier. We get there faster. So what would take a year in development is now maybe a month or 2 months. So that's a lot of resources that can be spent elsewhere and taken elsewhere to have more creatively satisfying results. So I think it's all good. I think it's finally the human mind will adapt to figuring out how to use a new technology. I remember when computers came out, I'm that old, there was a whole discussion about how it's going to be ending human employment as such, and computers will take over, and 50 years later we're still pretty much using computers, and it's all part of how we're using any tech that comes. The human mind will learn to find do the best solution or find the best way to tell stories. End of the day, games, film, these are all just storytelling mediums, and tech gives us more and more avenues, I think, to tell our stories. That's it. That's all I want to say.
I think there's one small thing which I want to add to what she said, which is very interesting. Again, anecdote, and I absolutely love this one. Is that when I started making films, I was asked by a very senior journalist in Kolkata that why do you make films? And I honestly didn't have any answer because I've been wanting to make films ever since I was in grade 5. So the gentleman gave his answer to me and said that, well, do you realize you want to be immortal? And when I came back home, I said, not a bad thing to say. Because we would obviously want our work to stay on even when we are not. The scary part is, I've heard that there are actors who now go to Los Angeles and get their mapping done of their faces and their postures and body language and emotions, and they're there stationed for for good 4, 5, 8 days, a month, and they have actually, it's almost like a sperm bank where they have actually stored their whatever, I don't know what they call it, but they've stored themselves.
Lightness.
Yeah, so in future, when this actor is no more, we will be subjected to more films of his. And whether we like it or not. And I think it's scary. It's really, really scary. So, again, it would also be that if Uttam Kumar was alive, I would have loved to store him and see him in more films. But again, there has to be an organic process to it. But again, this is an anecdote. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I think it's true. The actor who I know of went there since he did not have too many expressions. He's got over in just 2 days. But people with a range of emotions and expressions, they are actually there for a week and 10 days, and they are constantly mapping all their emotions. So I would love to hear all of you comment on this, and the possibility of seeing actors we don't like for the rest of humanity is something which I would like to have a discussion on.
There is a 2013 film called, I think it's called The Congress, with Robin Wright. Have you perhaps seen that? That is all about an actress giving her permission for her likeness to be used on an AI film. It is mind-boggling in terms of what all the issues it addresses with what the actress is going through, and with how it can then go to a kind of space that is unimaginable. I think it'd be very interesting if you can watch it. It probably has the answer to what we're talking about now.
And more recently, Srijit tried to do something similar with Uttam Kumar.
Hi, my name is Vaibhav. I come from the technology side of media and entertainment. And as a technologist working in media and entertainment industry, we have largely divided into 3 sections, right? One is content creation, content distribution, and fan engagement, right? I think largely the discussion has been on these 3 areas, right? I think coming from technology, even it's mind-boggling, confusing for us what's going to happen in 5 years. So we can't talk about 5 years, right? But let's talk about 2025 and 2026. When you look at content creation, whether it's storyboarding, pre-production, production, VFX, or whether it's distribution such as hard disk to digital and OTTs coming along, or fan engagement where gaming engines and gaming are coming in, and there's a hybrid between gaming industry and media now coming in for people to kind of cross-pollinate each other's user base. So do you have any perspective of, at the back of whether it's AI, whether it's something else, which one of these 3 categories or divisions part of the media industry would thrive versus the other was going to go through a bit of turbulence? Like, what's your perspective? Because I think we have great content creators over here, we have distributors, and we have talked about the fan engagement and user engagement, second screen as well. So it'd be quite interesting to see from those 3 point of view, how do you see next 2025 and 2026? I mean, I don't think even I know what will happen in technology in 2027. But what do you think are the biggest changes coming over here?
Which are the 3 categories you said?
Content creation. I mean, that's why we kind of saw it from the technology point of view. How are we going to take AI and go to production houses on content creation? How are we going to go to distribution content, whether it's the likes of OTT or whether it's the cinema? And then third was the fan engagement, because we are seeing a lot of cross-pollination between game industry and media industry, where the second screen experience is kind of becoming the first screen experience. So if we kind of see from these 3 angles, like how do you see what is the biggest thing that is coming in 2025, 2026 as a change, what we have not seen before?
Yeah, I would say, personally speaking, I would say it's going to be fan engagement, because technology is finding more and more ways to engage with increasingly disengaged fans with Vardhan talked about the 6-second rule, and that's not new. When I started working for MTV 25 years ago, they said you need to grab them in 6 seconds. So, and this is long before we were still working on tapes and things like that. So, today we are in a scenario at home. My wife's first screen is her phone. She commits the sacrilege of, and I'm watching work by a great master sitting next to me with her phone. I used to get angry once. Now I reconcile by saying that it's her loss, not mine, which it is. So I would say fan engagement, because something will supersede her TikTok. Something will, something will give her that dopamine, which for 5 seconds or to 3 seconds. And distribution, I would say, is already, I wouldn't say disrupted. It's taken technology in its flow. And content creation is, I think, we are not going to see that big a change in the period that you mentioned, 25, 26. It's getting there, but it's not widespread, simply because Sora still costs $200 a month to subscribe to. Let Sora come down to $20 a month, then I'll tell you a different story.
So it's the price.
Right now it's the pricing, and until you bring down the pricing, you don't know the imagination, what people can do with it. It still needs the human imagination. It's not like something is generating itself on its own, like Terminator, Rise of the Machines. We are not there yet, but it still needs someone. So if the person sitting in a small town, and again, to quote Shekhar, he's starting a film school in Dharavi. He's saying a 15-year-old girl who can prompt better than him is a better director than Shekhar Kapoor. Is the exact words he told me. So I'm repeating it back to you. So that is not going to happen until they can afford Sora, which at $200 a month per subscription. Only the richest can afford it. And once you make that available, then the imagination will come into play, and then the disruption in the content creation.
Yeah. I think that what he's talking about is the democratization. When OTT came, we realized, okay, indie filmmakers can, experiment in their film, or their series can come on Netflix, on Amazon. Over a period of time, now we see all big studios are majorly producing on Netflix or other streaming services. So democratization is really important. And when I say, okay, I will prompt better and I can make better films by prompting, that tech part, your part, has to be reasonably priced enough to, used by everyone. Because big tech also costs big money. Who can afford big money? Big studios and wealthy producers. So it goes back to the same thing. It's not democratization. That anyone can prompt. That anyone is a very. I can't use your tech because it is expensive as of now. Till it goes to the last common denominator, like we're talking about, I think major disruption will not happen.
Sorry to butt in here, but just to add to what Bodhana had said about posterity and immortality, I write books about films. So books today still exist in both, Kindle or ebook form as well as physical form. They might exist, they might not exist in the future. Who knows? But what digital has done it has also made films ephemeral or temporary in a sense that Lawrence of Arabia is on Netflix a couple of months or 4 months or 5 months, then it's out. And it's true for any film. I mean, especially indie films and small films, they only exist in certain OTT platforms for a very temporary period of time, and then they disappear. Physical formats don't exist anymore. So, what happens to the posterity of cinema in the post-digital world? What happens? And there are no DVDs anymore. There are no Blu-rays. What happens to the future of cinema? Where do we watch these films 20 years on?
So just I'll just give you an example. Maybe it doesn't answer what you said, but like we released Ye Jawani Hai Diwani in cinemas in January in UK, and it has done more than a brand new film. That film, Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, is available on every OTT platform. I mean, everyone has access to it. You could probably get a link uploaded by somebody on YouTube as well. I was shocked to see people are spending £7-8 and going and watching that film. So, discovering content is a problem despite all the technology that is around us. Secondly, let's be brutal and honest. Netflix is not here for the love of films, or Amazon Prime. They are here to make money. When they came into India, they gave everybody such lucrative deals. Doesn't matter, you got 50 library films, give it to me, your father's films, give it to me, I'll put it up, I'll give you 10 crores, whatever. Now, when they've got a foothold in the country, they've got their 8 million subscribers and they're starting to get their targets met, they're telling all those filmmakers who have libraries, do it on revenue share. Otherwise, we are not interested, we are not giving you money anymore. Amazon is paying some, I don't know, it's a 1 rupee or whatever it is, per stream. And the respectable makers are saying, forget it, I don't want my film to stay out there, because the bigger problem is if it's on a digital format, you can rip it, make copies of it. I mean, just a tangent from this, right now the process is when a film releases in cinemas, in 56 days it comes on digital. I'm talking about only Indian films. 56 days it comes on digital, and 4 months from those 56 days it comes on television. Not so long ago, the window was theatre, television, and then digital. Now the prices of satellite television rights have crashed, because when it comes on digital, although it reaches only 8 million homes, the television audience is in 100 million homes. But the prices are going down because this digital copy is ripped and you can get it at a local station on a USB for whatever, 50 rupees. So the advertiser who's, Hindustan Lever, the guy deciding media spend, he's telling the channel, why should I wait 4 months, pay you sponsorship, and the audience sitting at home will see it with 10 breaks. A 3-hour movie will take 5 hours when he can see it at home uninterrupted already. There's no more premiumness to this piece of content. So, I mean, there are lots of examples of how technology, how Netflix, Amazon, and if you term them as technology movers, how they have not been to the benefit of filmmakers as such, and who want their work to remain forever.
Part of the industry which is responsible for some of these changes that are happening, and a few observations. One is, of course, what we're saying is today Sora is costing $200 a month, but if we go by Moore's law and the power of processing, how that's improving, it will get democratized. So maybe not 5 years, maybe 10 years time. And one of the things I guess we may see happening is almost citizen development of films, where merging the content creation and the user engagement, where the user actually goes in and says, I didn't like this ending, let's kind of change the ending to something else. And I think there was a motion in the DVD kind of space of probably 10 years back, where people started kind of doing multiple endings of the film. This will almost become real, where they could actually choose how the film goes and how it develops.
It's happening in cinemas in Japan as we speak.
So there's that. But I think the reality of the scenario is, if we look at how AI is changing every other industry, eventually we may come to a stage where it's the creator who becomes the most important individual. The whole creation process may get automated, but the person who's trying to tell the story is still probably the most important person, because he will probably, whether it's prompts or otherwise, tell the story and the film will get generated somehow. So I think that's one of the things I might see happening maybe in my lifetime. And the other thing is, coming back to basics, everything that can be digitally generated today eventually is probably going to get taken away by AI. So that means there will come a time when people will go back to the theater and see people acting on stage. And that will be true entertainment.
Well, I guess that pretty much brings us to the end of this particular episode of Tech Tuesdays. It would be wrong on my part if I say it was not exciting. It was exciting, engaging, interesting, and most importantly, we had a lot of people in various parts of the multiple other time zones sitting and enjoying this whole process, this whole discussion. Thanks to all the 4 panel members we have out here, Naman, Yasser, Pranav, and Vadan, of course, staying so late in the evening, or night, or morning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking me away. Before we sign off, a couple of quick notes on Tech Tuesdays. As I said in the beginning, I'll say it again. Please hang around for your bites. There are no train strikes today. Nothing is happening there. Everything's calm and cool. Hang around. We'll take your bites. In the meantime, enjoy the drinks and some snacks out there. The next episode of Tech Tuesdays is taking place on the 1st of April. It's not April Fool's Day. It's a Tech Day. The topic for the evening is UK Tech and Global Trends. We have the foremost Chief Scientific Advisor of the UK government and the head of AI of the UK government joining the panel. For the month of May, we are focusing on agentic AI, which is the next state of AI. And since we're talking AI, you should know agentic AI is going to take the whole customer service industry by storm. And as usual, to know more about today's episodes, as well as the forthcoming ones, please follow us on TechTuesdaysUK on LinkedIn. This particular episode will soon go live on our YouTube channel. We have close to about 40,000 odd subscribers out there. So please follow us and watch that particular episode as well. And last but not the least, while SBI UK is the hosting partner for the first 4 episodes of this season, which is still the month of June, for the remaining episode or remaining 8 episodes of this particular season, we have partnered with Smith LLP is a hosting partner for the month of, starting for the month of July to next year. And we've got Nathan Menon, who is the partner at Smith out here. Nathan, would you like to share anything?
No, just delighted on. I just want to say that, delighted on behalf of Reed Smith to be partnering with Tech Tuesdays. If the discussion is as good as it has been today, then we'll be in for a treat for the remaining months that we'll be hosting. So look forward to seeing many of you at our offices from July onwards.
Thank you. Wonderful. So that brings us formally to the end of this particular episode. Enjoy the drinks, have a safe ride back home, but hang around for your bites before that. Good night. Thank you.
Lovely, guys.